As you can see, we nerd out a little bit on salt.
Salt's fun if you dig into it. Our first sale came from Reddit, where I created a Reddit account, posted in a feed, pretending to try the product, and sort of was saying, "Oh, it's really great." And within 2 seconds, someone was like, "He owns it. Get rid of it. You're out." And I got booted out. So that was a steep learning curve there.
Welcome to Add to Cart, Australia's leading e-commerce podcast that express delivers all you need to know in the fast-moving world of online retail. Here's your host, Bushy.
Hello there, e-commerce adventurers. Now, you know that the world of e-com can take us into some weird and some wacky places. Well, today's episode might just take the cake. Imagine owning a digital agency, getting curious about the science of salt and electrolytes, and then getting to a spot where you are sourcing your main ingredients from an ancient lake in the middle of Australia. Yep, that's exactly where we're headed today on Add to Cart. Welcome back to Add to Cart. My name is Bushy, joining you from the land of the Turrbal people here in Brisbane, Australia. I'm thrilled to welcome Jason Thomas and Cale McPherson, the brilliant minds behind Sodii. That's Sodii. Sodii is an Aussie electrolyte brand winning over fitness buffs and everyday Aussies alike, including myself. They believe that salt is the secret to better hydration, peak performance, and daily wellness. Jason and Cale started with a simple mission: change the way that people think about hydration. Since then, they've transformed conversations around salt into science-based products. Now with distribution into more than 650 retailers, including boutique gyms, health food stores, chemists, and independent supermarkets, they're on a bit of a growth tear, but they're just getting started. Today, you will hear how Jason and Cale turned Australia's purest inland salt, sourced from WA's Lake Deborah, into a product that they stand by hand on heart. They talk about why electrolytes are about much more than conquering thirst, and how they've used their branding expertise from Divide Agency, which they own, to give Sodii its standout identity. And of course, we talk all e-commerce topics, from navigating product lifecycle strategies to tackling stock issues and international expansion. This episode is brimming with insights for brand builders, product developers, and marketing strategists. A big thanks to our partners Shopify and Klaviyo for making this episode and all episodes of Add to Cart possible. A quick reminder, if you haven't already, sign up for my weekly e-commerce newsletter. Every Tuesday, I share key industry insights along with my choice of 5 e-commerce stories, research, or case studies from the past week that will help you in your e-commerce role. Sign up for free at addtocart.com.au/subscribe. All right, enough for me. We've got salt to talk about. Let's dive into it. Here's my chat with Jason and Cale from Sodii. Cale, Jason, welcome to Add to Cart.
Hey.
Thanks for having us.
Good to have you here. You guys were my saviour over Christmas. We were talking a little bit before Christmas, and you sent me out very kindly a sample pack of Sodii, which I have here for those watching on video. And I took my holidays in Tweed Heads and Bundaberg, of all places, and Bundaberg is fucking hot. So I was popping Sodiis on the regular, and my in-laws actually stopped me at one point. They're like, "What is that powder that you're putting in your drink?" It looked a bit sus. But I feel like it worked.
Yeah, holidaying is sweaty work sometimes.
That's it. So guys, tell us about Sodii. What is Sodii? How does it work?
Sodii is, going back a few years, we were sort of toying around with sort of different diets and sort of all this different, like, sort of health, I guess, optimizations stuff. I think it was all in our own workplace. We sort of just started chatting about sort of best diets and all that kind of stuff. And then it kind of led us into like these low carb diets, keto diet, carnivore diet. And then the one thing that really stood out to us is that you needed a lot more sort of salt on those diets. And when you start, I mean, this going back sort of 4 years ago, the market's kind of expanded since then, but there wasn't a lot of products really from a convenient level that are available to you. And in that hydration space, it really hadn't sort of kicked as hard as it has now in terms of that. It was only sort of the big players, Gatorade and Powerade, classified as electrolytes, and then sort of those hydrolytes, or even like really, really specific products that didn't even come close to the salt requirements that we sort of needed to get into like a drink. And that led us just putting salt in water And then you sort of adapt it from there. You put sort of lemon in it and try and jazz it up a little bit as much as you can. But when it came really down to it, you were just having a lot of salt in water and it tasted really bad. So that led us to kind of, there must be other alternatives out there, and there just really wasn't. So that led us to getting into making our own product. The closest sort of sodium content that we could find at the time was around 200 milligrams. The problem with that came with a whole bunch of artificial sweeteners. They didn't really call out where the salt was from. There was no real magnesium or potassium content in there. There was no real rhyme or reason as to why the ingredients were that way. So it kind of just really opened our eyes to, there must be a gap there for, there's definitely other people like us looking for products like this, especially in Australia, hot summers, as athletes. Why hasn't this been done so earlier? And it just really hadn't been looked at. So it kind of led us down the path of starting the sampling process and working through different flavors and really just nailing down that electrolyte content as to why it is the way it is. 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 210 milligrams of potassium, and 70 milligrams of magnesium. And then the rest is sort of the history from there. It turns out people were looking for a product like that.
So there's a few things going on here. You've got product development, obviously, but it's also sounding a bit sciencey and a bit techy. Did you guys have a background in product development in this area beforehand?
No, we definitely lent on, there's definitely services you can lean on in that department when it comes to manufacturing a product like this for product formulation. But I'd definitely say that the nutrition background is around, I guess, really just diving into the research on your own. There's ample research out there from peer-reviewed papers on backing this sort of science up around specific electrolyte content in terms of different sports to different medical conditions to just even everyday lifestyle sort of studies. And the research is there on how much salt a human can have. We're sort of heavily influenced by some, I guess, medical researchers coming out of America. And typically America is sort of like, and even Australia to a point, the research is years ahead of what is sort of common knowledge, and sort of research that's coming out today that's getting sort of implemented in the public is sort of, they say 10 to 14 years behind. They were starting to talk about it 10 to 14 years ago. So it's just got obviously speeding up now, but we're sort of just jumped in at the right time there to understand kind of like saturated fat, not as bad as what people sort of say it was. Sugar turns out to be worse than people were saying it is.
Don't get into the sugar business.
Yeah, bad. But, and then salt, as it turns out, really not as bad as what people were sort of thinking. The research is there to back it up. And then I guess the manufacturers and the laboratories there in terms of what product development really helped us pull it together into a safe manner. And then obviously all the sort of guidelines are there around working with, TGA products and therapeutic goods and all that kind of stuff as well from an Australian and New Zealand point of view too. So
how do you onboard a product development? What do you even call them? Like, what do you Google to kind of start that journey?
There's a range of things you can Google. They all kind of go with different things. Contract manufacturing is probably a good starting point. Contract supplement manufacturing, contract bulk powder manufacturing is probably where I found a lot. But what we found tricky is a lot of the businesses or contract manufacturers, they may be doing the best product, but they're really good at manufacturing products. So they're hard to find because their marketing and website and SEO side of it is just tough. So it's really a lot of digging through LinkedIn, trying to find people, even talking to, got a list of contract manufacturers from actually ingredient suppliers and said, who do you supply ingredients to? And they gave us a list of their customers basically in different states, all of which you can't really find on Google either because the SEO is so bad on their sites or they're just on page 7 of Google. So it is a bit tricky to find a good one, but you learn quickly what questions to ask and who looks like a good one. And just a steep learning curve of how it works.
What was the best question you asked?
The best question? Most valuable question is, are you okay to use our ingredients? We want to own the ingredients, know where they come from just for security reasons. If we have to pick it up and take it elsewhere, that's a great security spot for that. Scalability, how much product can you do monthly? Just all sort of the standard questions. Where are they located is a big one too, because obviously when you're shipping product across the country to wherever your logistics or warehouse is, that adds into it. There's a lot of standard stuff.
And you really do, you have to come at it with a certain level of base knowledge. Otherwise, like to really fight for the ingredients you want to use, the packaging you'd like to use, I guess the values that you sort of uphold as a brand. Because like before Sodii, we went through a couple of different product development cycles with other sort of products that we're playing around with, whether it be in like the low carb space, and you ask for a product and it sort of comes back with, 10 ingredients that are absolute sort of no-nos in that space. And it really teaches you that they understand manufacturing, they understand their world. You really have to come at it from a point of like, what product do you want to make, and then can you reverse engineer that and make them work out how to make it?
Yeah, can you change everything you've done in the past, because we want to do it a different way?
Yeah,
which is that's the tricky bit. Finding someone that's willing to work with you, especially when you're starting out too, because your minimum order quantities when you're starting out are obviously quite low. So there's obviously a sliding scale of manufacturers, some on the smaller end, some on the larger scale. Some are willing to work with you, some aren't. So it's about finding one that you can work with.
And last question on this side is, does your manufacturer take it all the way through to packaging it up? Because you've obviously got the containers, but you've also got the satchels. It's a bit unique in terms of the packaging. Do they take it all that way, or you do that separately?
So they blend the powder, make the powder, put it into the tubs to us, also pack into the individual sachets. We then do final product in our warehouse, just to save on some logistics stuff. It's much more efficient to ship bulk sachets than 30 sachets in a box. So we have a warehouse in Adelaide where we do all sort of fill our orders from and manage all sort of the final product stuff. But they basically get it 95% of the way. We just put it into individual boxes and get it out the door.
Very cool. I love the boxes. They're so good. They're like the perfect size in your pantry, especially the little dispenser tab at the bottom there. It makes it very handy.
I'm glad you noticed that there's a tear mark on them. We see some photos, people just rip the top off, and we're like, there's a tear thing down the bottom. You can open it up. It's a dispenser.
Yeah.
Love it. So tell me more about salt. I never thought I'd ask that question on Add to Cart. To your point, Jason, is like we were brought up to say salt is bad and eat too much salt and you'll have a heart attack. That's obviously, there's different research coming out on that now. Is salt and electrolytes the same thing, firstly?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I mean, electrolytes, as you sort of maybe have known them or it's been spoken about them as growing up and things like that, electrolytes are very much seen as an athlete-focused tool, or in worst case scenario, something you have in barley when you're probably not feeling super well. When your stomach's upset, you give it to a kid, all that kind of stuff. Electrolytes were seen as a medical use and sports use. Electrolytes as a whole obviously comes into, I guess, what it boils down to is minerals. So salt, potassium, magnesium, or sodium, potassium, magnesium, and obviously other ones that come into that. But the main ones we look at is, sodium, potassium, magnesium in our product. Sodium as a whole, you're right, it has had a really bad rap in the past. I suppose with a lot of things you've got to take, without sounding too conspiratorial, there's research that's done on these sort of things. It's sort of up in arms as to how those research sort of studies come about, who funds them, sort of motives behind them and what they're trying to find out. We could speak for hours and hours and hours about salt as a category, but I guess a lot of the research that was done in the past is outdated. It was sort of based around one really key study that sort of set salt down a path of not coming back from it, not easy to come back from, was a study that sort of found out of a huge population of people that 20% of the population experienced sort of cardiovascular events or a rise in blood pressure, which is a marker for heart disease from consuming too much salt. And that 20% happen to be insulin resistant as well in that population. And if you look at obviously Australians now, that percentage has grown quite a bit. But instead of sort of just making a really use case scenario for salt to say, hey, if you're insulin resistant, you should probably stay away from too much salt, they just made a blanket. It's much easier to make a blanket statement and say, hey, avoid salt because it leads to X, as opposed to the 80% of the market, the 80% of Australians that are actually completely fine with salt. And you couple that with a sort of campaign around hydration and drinking and water and the whole 8 glasses of water a day, which has been drilled into us from a long time as well.
Is that still true?
Depends. Definitely consuming water is very, very good for you, as much water as you want. The key component with hydration is 2 parts. It's water and salt. you can drink as much water as you want. You've also got to consume salt as well, because salt's really what pulls the water into the cell. It's what allows the cells to hydrate and I guess hold the water in, and water retention is a huge part of that. And it's obviously magnesium, potassium come into that as well. But sodium is really that key mineral that keeps you alive, essentially.
There you go. You get a science lesson on Add to Cart today. Bonus.
Yeah, again, we could talk for hours, but at the same time, salt's very, very important, very, very fine for you in the quantities. Your body's evolved over millions of years to thrive with salt and very, very deal with whatever it's thrown at it.
And fascinating that we're marketed salt anyway as electrolytes.
Yeah. And I guess the last finishing statement to that is you could walk down the supermarket aisle of the packaged food and, processed foods, chips, chocolate, sort of everything. You'll find sodium in absolutely everything. I think they sort of get to this point where, salt is in everything. It's easy to point the finger at salt as being maybe what the burger did, or the chips did, or the packaged food, or the processed food did. It's a really easy sort of scapegoat. You pull the salt out of that packaged food and you're just sprinkling a little bit of salt in your water, and it's not as bad as maybe everything else.
Yeah. On that, there's also a sliding scale with all things. Quality of ingredients matter, right? Down the bottom end, you've got highly processed table salt, which is a salt that's had every single other trace mineral and electrolyte taken out of it, purely sodium chloride. Then they artificially put iodine back into it. The body's not great at dealing with things in isolation. So that though when you do have those lower quality salts, which is purely sodium chloride and iodine put back in, the body can't deal with it as well, which is where things like fluid retention and increased blood pressure can come into it. Where on the other end of it, you have a really high quality unprocessed salt, which is normally anywhere from 90 to 95% sodium chloride with other trace minerals in there, such as magnesium, calcium, potassium, then trace minerals, boron, manganese, iodine, all of these trace minerals that when it's in its whole, the body goes, I know exactly what to do with this. I've been exposed to this for years and years and years. Everything has a spot for here, and you can deal with it much better. So that's why,
as you can see, we nerd out a little bit on salt.
Oh, I love it.
And some people get confused, we tend to use them interchangeably, which we probably shouldn't, between salt and sodium chloride, where salt is a whole salt rock. Within that has all the other minerals that I just spoke about, where sodium chloride is only one portion of that. So salt isn't an electrolyte, sodium chloride are, but salt is where sodium chloride traditionally comes from.
Gee whiz, it gets complicated.
Salt's fun if you dig into it. Yeah.
So tell me, I did go down the rabbit hole a little bit on your website, having a look at all the exotic places that you get your salt from. Tell me about the salt expeditions, because exactly like you said, you're not pulling salty water out of the ocean, or you're not adding table salt to sachets. Where are you getting your salt from?
When we sort of went down the path of trying to make the highest quality electrolyte as possible, as in our product, salt is a very large portion of it, sort of the main driver. It's what we believe makes a big difference in someone's hydration. We wanted to make that the highest quality salt that we could find. In Australia, we're lucky. We have great natural resources. So we source our salt from middle of WA, from an ancient inland salt lake called Lake Deborah. And because it's an ancient inland sea, it's not attached to any ocean, so it doesn't contain any of the microplastics or modern pollutions that a sea salt or another salt might have. Even the holy grail of salt from a few years ago, the pink Himalayan salt, is now sort of studies coming at say that can contain heavy metals and even radiation, depending on what side of the border it's mined on, etc. So we source ours from Lake Deborah. It's actually Australia's only organic salt. It's all hand harvested. It's arguably the most pure and most high quality salt in the world, and we're very proud to say that we use a WA salt that's such high quality.
That's amazing. And is that just set up like a mine that you just buy quantities of salt from?
Yeah, so it's a bit unique. So there's obviously salt mining, which involves sort of like explosives, digging up the earth, digging deep. Lake Deborah is really, really unique in the sense that it follows the natural cycles of I guess, Mother Nature, in the sense that in the warmer months, in the cooler months, the brine forms on the top of the lake, and the water comes into the lake and forms this really, really salty brine. And in the warmer months, this brine dries out and leaving a really, really hard scale of salt on top. That's a fully regenerative process that doesn't really involve digging explosives at all or anything like that. And what they do is, you can find videos online, what they do is literally just scrape the top off the lake pull it all into one sort of area and then literally let's bag it up, and there's no bleaching, there's no chemical, there's no cleaning, there's no sort of making it white, there's no really nothing. It's just salt in its most natural form. And that goes back to what Cale was talking about before in terms of all the goodness is in that. It's not processed at all. And then literally over 12 months, that cycle repeats and you've got salt again on top of the lake and no harm done.
That's very cool. And then you guys take that and then you've got different flavors. So you've got berry, you've got lemon, passion fruit are the ones that come to mind. When it comes to the new year, there are two types of people. Those who are organised and planned, they probably got a diary for Christmas. And those who get to October and say, where did the year go? Luckily for us, our partners at Klaviyo are the organised ones, and they've created a free 12-month e-commerce marketing calendar for you to plan your big wins in 2025. Do not miss an opportunity to boost sales and engage your customers with this month-by-month guide to significant marketing moments. From the unmissable moments like Black Friday and end of financial year to the untapped opportunities of National Avocado Day and Take Your Dog to Work Day, there are over 150 ideas to help you connect with your customers. Head to klaviyo.com/au to grab your copy. And if I don't see a spike in avocado promotions this year, I will be very disappointed. What else do you add to the salt to kind of bring it into a consumer product?
So it's very minimal. We wanted to make it as clean and flexible as possible. So Jace touched on it before. Previous electrolyte products before sort of we came into the market were either very minimal electrolytes, more sugar or artificial sweeteners, or a bunch of binding ingredients, etc. in there. And then you look at it and break down, you go, there's more non-electrolytes in here than actual electrolytes, where we want to kind of completely flip that, have a high quantity electrolyte product and not much else. So the sodium chloride or salt that we use in our product is like 85% of it, I think. We will then add some potassium chloride, some high quality magnesium. We use natural flavors where the flavoring component itself is actually from the oil of the fruit or whatever the flavoring is. We then just put a tiny bit of organic stevia in there to make it to kind of counteract the saltiness. And that's really it. Oh, a little bit of malic acid or tartaric acid sort of give it that zing. And that's really it. So we want to keep it as clean and tasty as possible. I'm not trying to hide the fact that there's a good whack of salt in there. It's part of the product. It's why the way it is. It's why we call the flavor salty citrus or salty passion fruit. Or we're not trying to hide that. We're just trying to make it refreshing, kind of zingy, but still salty. And we think most of the time, the reviews sort of speak for himself, that it is a refreshing drink.
There is something in it, isn't it? Because when I first tried it, I'll be honest with you, I was like, oh, like it really hits you because it's not like a sports drink. It's not like a Gatorade or a Powerade where it's got a real sweetener to it. It does taste salty and it's got that zing. That zing's a great one. But even as you're talking about it then, because I've been using it for like the last month, my mouth started watering just thinking about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I really need to get another one. There's something to it. It's like you get past that initial kind of shock factor and then you become conditioned to it and you kind of crave it.
Once your taste buds get used to that first whack where they're like, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
After that, it actually gets quite addictive. And you start going, shit, where's my Sodii at?
A real interesting part around that is your sugar can sometimes hijack the same taste receptors that salt sort of follow. So when you have cravings salt, they sort of sit on the same, like sugar can compete for your salt cravings in terms of what they are going for. So when you consume more salt, you actually, interestingly, don't need as much sugar. You don't crave sugar as much when you're balancing it out with the right amount of salt. And that's where those, I guess that salty sweet flavor is that we've created. Is it's not sugar, but it's nice and sweet. It's nice and salty. It's so refreshing, and you're sort of getting all the benefits from that as well.
What's interesting too, which is probably worth bringing up, some people despise the taste of stevia. They think it's got a really bitter taste to it. But it actually is a good sweetener if you're not looking to spike your glucose levels, etc. But people think it tastes bitter. But one way to counteract that bitterness is obviously salt, which is great for us because we have a good whack of salt in there. So people that normally don't like the aftertaste of stevia try Sodii and they go, oh, it's completely gone. Just because there is that salt in there sort of counteract that bitterness.
Yep, makes sense. All right, so we should talk some e-commerce. Tell us about where you're, so what, started in 2021, so almost 4 years running now. So that would have been peak COVID starting out. Tell us about the numbers in those first 4 years. What can you share around how you've grown this business?
Yeah, well, Jason and I have a design and sort of branding background. So we understand what it takes to design, create, and launch a brand that someone's going to be attracted to and sort of fall in love with to a degree. So we were in no rush to get to any form of scale of numbers. For us, launching it was really about launching to a very small group of people who we knew were going to see benefit from the product. We were lucky enough to be introduced to sort of the product lifecycle quite early on in our business journey, and we really understood what that meant and knew that we had to launch it slowly or carefully to make sure it did get to scale. A product like ours is very, especially back then, quite disruptive, quite counterintuitive to what you're told from a health and nutrition space, and especially in the hydration space.
I could imagine those early days launching softly or considerably would have been hard, especially peak COVID, where the numbers were going off the charts.
We're lucky enough to be in South Australia, so we didn't get hit as hard as other states. We were pretty much free to roam as we want. So Jason and I were in the office every day. It actually gave us some time to breathe and plan things out properly. We knew we were in the whole country and world sort of in lockdown, so we were in no rush to launch it. So we just sort of mapped out who we wanted, the small groups of people who we wanted to give the product to and make sure that they loved it, give us feedback from it early on, as we knew they were going to be the innovators, early adopters, whatever you want to call them, that were going to push it through the later cycles of that sort of product life cycle. So we're just doing really small numbers at the start, communicating to small groups of 30, 50, sort of 100 people. And as you sort of compound interest that out, those people push it through and tell someone, and tapping into small community, etc. That was really sort of our early launch days.
And is that you literally getting on Instagram DMs, just reaching out to people and introducing the product and offering samples?
Basically exactly that, yeah.
Sometimes even small, like literally just to people that we knew.
Yeah. Even like the small Facebook groups who had small dietary communities, whatever they were, getting in touch with the admin, chatting to them. That's a great strategy because they're obviously trusted within their own small community. Just, real small grassroots stuff, getting feedback, getting the product out in the hand of the right people was really the...
Good tip to go to the admins first rather than just posting in the groups, because admins, they like to feel a bit special, don't they?
We've made that mistake.
That's a great lesson, that is, yeah. Our first sale came from Reddit, where I created a Reddit account, posted in a feed pretending to try the product, and sort of was saying, oh, it's really great. And within 2 seconds, someone was like, he owns it, get rid of it, you're out. And I got booted out. So that was a steep learning curve there. Yeah.
Was that you, Jason? Did you report him?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And before we expand on the story, just you mentioned product life cycle and your understanding of it. You talked about launching considerably at the start. What's your understanding of the product life cycle and your approach to it, just from a high level, just so we understand where you're coming from and where you're going?
Yeah, so the product life cycle is really, if you consider it a graph of time across the bottom, sales through the top, and it really just breaks down through science or marketing science or business science, really the types of consumers that need to say this product, validate the product before another group of consumers will adopt it, basically. And it starts out innovators, early adopters, early majority, and then it goes into majority, and then all of that later on. Where I think a lot of brands and businesses go wrong, they try and launch a product for everyone from day one because they go, that's the largest group of customers. That's got to be our best bang for buck. Not realizing that there's a large group of those people there because by nature they're less risk adverse, not out there looking for new products. They're only going to try a product if they're told by someone they trust within that certain category of product. So in any market or any category, there's going to be people that are innovators. They're the ones that are out there trying new things all the time, maybe making their own versions of it. They don't really care about marketing or branding their market that much. They just love new things, trying new things. They're the ones that you really put the product in the hands first of, because they're going to tell sort of that next group, which is sort of the early adopters. From there, once you sort of get them on board, they go, this is great. They're going to tell more people, and sort of eventually most brands will never really get to the end of that. That's sort of like your large, major household name brands. But a lot of brands just go for the massive group of consumers because they go, that's the best. But in reality, you got to get validity through the innovators, early adopters. We kind of were lucky enough to understand that and not waste all of our marketing dollars on ad spend appealing to everyone. we were just doing grassroots. Here's the product. This is why you benefit from it. And letting them really push through the early stages of that product lifecycle.
And were they mainly athletes at that point?
I guess with our goal of trying to change the perception of electrolytes, historically, people are aware of electrolytes in the athlete space. So we knew there were people that were going to use the product purely for its performance benefits. So there were some athletes in there for sure, but we're really trying to open up another sort of product category within that daily wellness space. So a lot of our early stuff was with people who are interested in dietary strategies, optimization, people looking for ways to feel better, have more energy throughout the day. So there's definitely some athlete stuff in there, but we did sort of open up to a more general health aware consumer.
And then fast forward to where you are today, selling in Australia, obviously. Are you expanding beyond that?
We typically started, as Cale said before, we typically started with DTC probably for the first 3.5 to pretty much the last until the last 6 months. We really took that as a chance to kind of hone in on the product, build up really much excitement, or as much excitement as we could around the product, and also controlling our own sort of stock and packaging and all those sorts of things.
What was the best piece of feedback you got during those early stages? Because most people have a story around someone coming back on feedback on the packaging or the taste was there anything did you have any oh shit moments?
Yeah, I mean, we still get them to this day, to be honest. They come in every single day. The piece around packaging is one thing. So like we decided to go with a square sachet purely for, I guess, the way that we wanted to go with. A lot of people have caught that, really, really want those sort of stick packaging options for the bottles. When it comes to tubs, you've got plastic considerations with that. Same with packaging. You've got sort of tear direction, which we've got wrong a couple of times on stage.
What? As in people, what do you go, left to right?
Yeah, or sometimes ours for a while was down the side and people, weren't really happy with that. That's all fine, and they're sort of easy ones to fix. I guess from a salt point of view, the biggest challenge with us has always been around, it's a soluble product. It's one of those things, if you leave sitting in a humid environment for too long, it can crystallize purely because it's salt. And if that's sort of sitting in, maybe you put the scoop in your glass, got a little bit of water on your scoop, and you put that in your container, and then you come back in. Some people come back in 7 days' time and, the whole tub's sort of solidified because they've got water into it. And literally 10 out of 10 times we'll obviously honour a replacement for that because it's just not the product that they thought they were getting, that kind of thing. And that kind of comes back to good customer service, I think. Just, someone it's not really on the label to avoid putting water in it because it's a water drink, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we to and fro with packaging all the time, as just with design background, and we're about to go through a whole packaging refresh again for probably the 5th time. So it'll never stop in that regard.
Is it hard because you guys do have the design background? And I'm going to give the agency a shout out here, Divide Agency in Adelaide. Is it hard to stop tinkering with the design and the branding?
Impossible.
Yeah, it's our bane of our existence, really. Yeah, because we see it every day as well, and we sit in it and we just look at it too closely and have the ability to just change stuff on a fly.
Yeah,
we have to actually stop ourselves sometimes because we go, that might be something to us, but the grand scheme of people don't care or don't know about it. It's a waste of time. So
that's right. Like, you've got a beautiful brand and most people are discovering it for the first time anyway, but with fresh eyes, but you don't have those fresh eyes anymore.
No, they're tainted.
Yeah, no. It's going back to that product life cycle, like packaging is a huge part of that, like who you want that product to appeal to, what it feels like, looks like, sounds like. It's a massive deal. And for us, we wanted the product to seem like it could sit on your kitchen bench and you'd be happy with it. It could sit on your office desk and entice questions around it. It could, sit on a product shelf and, people are going to definitely catch their eye at it. It needs to look, medical enough to kind of look like it's going to give me benefit, but not, candy enough or, fresh enough that it's going to look like junk food. And so when you start putting it through its paces and putting it through those lenses, it becomes really, really hard to what you can sort of narrow in on as product designers. Or you can kind of hope is that you assemble the best and go forward with what you're confident with. And luckily, we think we've sort of hit the nail on the head with what we wanted. As you go through that product life cycle, you've got challenges in that, maybe the product doesn't fit, a mine site, for instance, because, that's just, they're used to really, tradesman sort of heavy high-vis brands that, maybe need a little bit more work safety appeal to them, or same with, every sort of electrolyte. A lot of electrolyte products, or even just sports food products, you sort of see come out are very tailored towards performance, fast, very edgy, whereas ours is a little bit obviously more softer and colourful and vibrant. So you've just got to be, I think we're just sort of got to remain confident with the product itself. And I think the ingredients, we have to remind ourselves, do a lot of the talking for us. We've got professional golfers using the product. We've got Ironmen using the product. We've also got, just everyday people using the product, and it's really awesome to see. So
yeah, I could imagine as you do get through that product life cycle and your customer base expands, you'll be faced with all these different types of people using the product that you never imagined at the start. Like, I remember one of my mates is a fly-in, fly-out worker out in the mines in Queensland, and we were away on a trip one time, and he just brings out this bag of electrolytes. He goes, "Boys, I've got some electrolytes for you. So we'll fix you straight up. We'll use them out on the side." I'm like, I didn't even know this was a thing. But yeah, like I can imagine as you're doing that, and how do you make it fit for everyone? But Jason, I interrupted you. Sorry. You were talking around starting out as a D2C brand and the growth through that. And then I'm keen to hear where you're expanding to from there.
Yeah, so the last 6 months, we put a big focus on bricks and mortar. We launched retail very, very similar to how we started the business. We launched retail very, very, I guess, we held it back for a long time. Where we launched retail was we did no, I guess, reach out or cold calling or anything like that. We purely just opened it up, a wholesale sort of email, and then just sort of waited to see what opportunities arose. And really what you get is sort of people asking to stock the product. And luckily for us, that fit exactly sort of into our niche. It was yoga studios, it was Pilates studios, it was boutique gyms. For a bit there, it was, sort of boutique health food stores. Very, very independent. We had a lot of, control over how the product was displayed. We had a really, really great relationship with those vendors in terms of they understood the benefits of the product. They were happy to hand sell on our regard. They were users of the product. They had used it for years, and they thought they want to help grow the brand, and they were very much buying into our brand as a whole. So that wholesale and was great launch for the brand because it's just extra eyes on the brand. So we grew that ourselves to about 120 to 130 retailers around the country. It ranged across different uses. And that sort of opened the door to conversations with distributors and different sort of wholesale arrangements as well. Fast forward 4 months down the line, we're in about 650 to, I think, 700 retailers around just Australia now, ranging from chemists to those health food stores to gyms to smaller independent supermarkets. We've got a wholesale footprint in New Zealand as well as our e-commerce trade in New Zealand. And then about 10% of our online trade goes internationally as well, to which we're sort of in discussions now around launching into those opportunities out there for countries. I think Australian products always fare pretty well in an international environment. We're kind of renowned for high quality products. And I think electrolytes are sort of no different in that regard. We've got a great high performance sport, I guess, call it a market in terms of we're renowned for our athletes as well. And sort of like what a lot of what our athletes are doing, sort of people follow as well. So I think there's really good use cases for the product in that European sector as well. There's a lot of great cases there for the sort of Asian markets in sort of holiday destinations as well for an Australian product that uses Australian salt. And of course, the US market is just booming. The issue is the fun part there is around competition and sort of where their products are positioned and who they're positioned to. So
I can imagine as you expand internationally, there's a whole bunch of considerations around messaging as well, because like you said at the start, the Australian market might be a bit behind when it comes to awareness around benefits of salt and how that impacts our lifestyles. But then overseas, if they're a bit more advanced, does it turn then to an origin story around the Lake Deborah story and, ingredients more so than benefits?
Yeah. I mean, you'd be surprised. I think those messages are obviously, with the access to sort of internet and information now, that message is getting fast tracked and forward. I think there is a great origin story from an Australian brand there, but I don't think it's unique. I think there are markets where the product itself is really, really what people are looking for, and there really just isn't anything else like it. Like if you sort of look at UAE or those sort of Abu Dhabi and Dubai, Dubai's the sort of fitness capital of the world now, and from a market that's really, really relatively new. People just need electrolytes there. They don't really care what they get. I think that opens up the product, then opens the door, and then you let the brand do the rest in terms of the look, feel, and sort of how it's positioned and the ingredients in it, and let the market decide, I guess, what type of product and the ingredients, the sort of what value, because there's a big enough, I would say, the electrolyte market is growing. It's growing quite big. There's a lot of sort of players coming into the space. It's really exciting, and I think everyone's sort of carving out their own niches, whether it be performance sport, whether it be triathlete focused, whether it be medicinal or medical focused. There's enough there for everyone, and sort of consumers will chip and change between what's right for them.
Quick Google search and Facebook and Instagram feed shows that you guys are pretty aggressive in performance marketing. Any tips that you've come across, say in the last 6 months, because that world is constantly changing? Have you found any tips from an execution perspective that's helped you get cut through in those environments?
Yeah, we've tried a bunch of things. We've tried a bunch of multiple different sort of agencies to assist with that. We've always struggled to get on the same page as performance marketing agencies. With our background in design and branding, we kind of always put that as the primary lens to view things through, where we've found if you're not working with the right partner, there's a bit of friction in terms of how to approach things. For example, if their primary focus is results, which is obviously important, you're going to be wasting dollars, it's going to be a very different approach to someone who prioritizes brand and perception and all of that. So we have a great agency we're working with now who are very much on the same page with us, a brand-focused agency, who are actually getting great results. Where we've potentially gone wrong is not sticking to our gut of what works for our brand and listening to an agency who's pushing their tactics. And as a result, there's just a collision in terms of what the content looks like to what our brand sounds like. So someone clicks through an ad, goes to our website, and it's the polar opposite. There's no join. There's no it feels completely different. So the thing would be make sure that what you're putting out represents your brand, how you'd be happy for a first person to see it. So we work very hard to make sure our meta ads represent our brand at the highest level, even if we're not getting the most maximum return as we could from a dollar perspective. But the consumers that do click through, they get it, 100% get it, rather than just sort of taking a sale for the sake of a sale.
So you're just trying to open the funnel
to the right type of consumer is the trick with that.
Yeah, and every time, Cale's right, like every time we've navigated away from our core values as, I guess, not even just in Sodii, but in what was in Divide as well in terms of that. There's so much out there from content right now in terms of like even products being produced. Every time we navigate off of why we created the product in the first place, or how we got it is to where it is now, it never really works out, and it always goes awry. Whether that's giving product to someone who we know doesn't really align with the brand, or it doesn't have the uses in mind for it. And the perfect example of that is people advertising it as a hangover product, or trying to advertise it as a hangover product. Like, yes, the product works for hangovers, but by no means do we want to be associated with the use of it as a hangover cure. I think there's plenty of other products that can fill that void. If people want to use it for that, that's fine. But, coming out and, making whole ads around it being used as a hangover is just not something that, as a small example of, I guess, navigating off of the core value of who we are as people. And then it doesn't feel right. The consumer feels that hesitancy as well, and it just doesn't lead to good results. Cale's right, where we kind of sacrifice selling to 100 customers to find the one that will keep coming back to us 100 times. I think that's a much better use case for us.
and avoiding those vanity metrics that some agencies might push onto you.
Exactly, yeah.
100%.
There's so many metrics that they can throw on your face, and if you don't actually dive into them, Jason's very good at actually digging into reports and figuring out what actually matters in those reports and going back to them being like, this doesn't actually make any sense, or where are you pulling this from? There's so many metrics that they can that you can look at and go, things are working, but in reality, they might not be. They could just sort of be facade metrics.
Yeah.
So I think it would be figuring out what is actually valuable for your brand and business as a metric, and what's your goal with, I guess, these digital marketing activities. If it's purely sales and you want to bump up revenue as much as possible, then by all means, you might have to have some tough internal conversations. If you want to use them as only one lever or one channel for growth and sales, then stick to what your brand is, stick to your positioning, stick to what matters to you. Because in the long run, you're going to get more accurate numbers. You're going to be able to do things better in the future. That would be the advice, I think.
Shopify just released its boring edition, but it's anything but boring. Instead of flashy new features, they've focused on what really matters. Over 150 performance improvements to existing tools, giving you a platform that works better and brings everything together seamlessly. This edition is all about optimization, polishing the rough edges to bring you a version of Shopify that's smoother than ever. Carts load 50% faster, making the world's best checkout even better. Add chat apps to the checkout to make your customer experience friction-free. B2B on Shopify got an upgrade with new features that allow you to customize customer accounts using apps and streamline the draft order process. And the in-store experience is supercharged by advanced data collection and customer segmentation to maximize local retail growth. Check out Shopify's 150 plus updates that make enterprise commerce better by searching Shopify Winter 2025 edition. If you're approaching performance marketing from a brand perspective, like you guys, what are some of those key metrics that you look at?
We've always focused on the educational side of things for our own sort of, direct marketing. Education has always proved to be a huge thing for us in terms of not just giving back, but creating, interest in leads. Going to go back to the start of the conversation around salt. Lots of education does need to happen in that space. As Cale mentioned, that mass market in that product lifecycle, the mass market is very, very, I would say, solution focused. Like in terms of they have a nail, they want to hammer it, that kind of thing, where they're looking for a product. Appealing to innovators and appealing to early adopters, they require a lot more nurturing through that process. Why am I taking it? What is it going to do for me? What's the price of it? And we're like, as you can see, we're very, very passionate about it. So this kind of stuff just oozes out of us really very easily. We want to talk about salt across a multitude of ways. It's really hard to distill that into a metric when we're taking that to, as Cale mentioned, agencies to say, hey, can we educate on Google Ads? It's like, well, no, Google doesn't really work that way. And so that's when it kind of goes back to a whole holistic view. It's like, what kind of blogs are we writing? What kind of content are we putting out into the world? What kind of research studies can we collaborate with universities on? There's all these other factors that come into building up what the consumer, I guess you mentioned the funnel. How many people are coming through that funnel and finding the information that they want to find?
It's almost like, how can we be of service to you at this stage of the journey that you're on?
Exactly. Yeah. So the product for us, or the sale at the end of the day, is obviously the last thing in most, marketing sense. The sale is the most important thing. For us, it's that nurturing stage after the sale when we think the majority of it begins. How do they use the product? Why did you buy this product? Are you going to come back again? What sort of information can we send you to actually implement this product? Because we get plenty of people, there's enough orders coming through where people sort of message us after 30 days and say, all my products gone. No, sorry, I haven't used the product in sort of 30 days, or they might use one a month, or, for those, whether it be hangovers or something. And, they're really not seeing the benefit. Whereas the polar opposite of that, and where you get the 5-star reviews and people who have left reviews saying this product has literally changed my life, is when they sort of implement it into their daily routines. That sharing that with friends and family, they're seeing the benefits of it. And that all comes from, I guess, the content that we're sharing to say that, hey, try this in your routine or use it this way. Not even product related information, just just general optimization stuff is all adding value to their life rather than buy this, sale, kind of, discount, which is what people are sort of bombarded with. We kind of like to see our marketing as a breath of fresh air, maybe between what is general sort of marketing sort of tactics as well.
But as for important metrics to us to sort of measure that, the main one we just sort of keep an eye on is return customer rate, which is massive for us, and also conversion rate and sort of time to rebuy. So that customer cohort is kind of what we just keep an eye on. If those things are trending in the right direction, we know sort of our marketing approach and everything we're putting out is doing the right thing because we're hitting the right people. We're not sort of hitting those consumers that are just taking a flyer, but people that are buying because they want the product, they've come through, they've been nurtured, and they're going to come back. We bounce between about a 48 to 50% repeat purchase rate, and anywhere from an 8 to 9% conversion rate on the site. And it doesn't fluctuate too much from that. So when you sort of put money into scaling that up, as long as those two things stay the same, you're hitting the right consumer. You're doing the right
That's
thing.
a huge conversion rate.
Massive.
Yeah.
Which is really nice when you're sort of going, do we want to scale ads? You go, yeah, as long as this doesn't budge, we're all sweet. Rather than scaling on a loose conversion rate or a poor return customer rate, just opening up the doors to the wrong type of consumer and just money goes down the drain from an ad spend.
Yeah, and I think it's all in that, again, we built the website ourselves. We know why the website's just getting redone again at the moment. We're constantly working on this customer journey.
This one needed to happen, I promise. Yeah. It's a bit outdated.
Obviously, there's a myriad of tools like where Shopify Plus, there's, you can add reviews to checkout. They all add up to this, where it is to get to a high conversion rate. But, I just know what I'm like as a consumer myself. I've been looking at a cold mattress topper for the last sort of 6 months, on, I think, 8 Sleep's the brand. But I'm in their funnel. I go to their website literally every week, read something new, and am I willing to make this purchase? I keep going back, and I'm getting closer and closer and closer to making this purchase.
Bloody hell, you are a hard sell on a mattress topper.
It's a $6,000 mattress topper. It's not easy. It's pretty high tech.
Yeah, next level.
Yeah, but hence my apprehension. But I mean, if you take that to a $15 sample pack of electrolytes, and we look at the customer journeys on our website, and we've done heat mapping before where people can come to the website 10, 15 times and go to different pages and read different things and get to different reviews, and you can kind of see them working out, hey, is this a product for myself? I know I've got the need for it, but I need extra convincing. From that, you can kind of build a really, really good customer flow and journey and work out what makes these people tick, what makes them convert, and then you kind of boil it down to there, and you just realize everyone's different, but you can kind of just build up the best case scenario and just hope that it works. In our case, it's working really well. So.
Awesome, guys. Oh, I've loved this chat. I've learned a lot about Salt, learned a lot about design, learned about performance marketing. What a spectrum we've covered. Tell us, next 12 months, we've talked about website redesign, we've talked about packaging and brand redesign, international expansion, and more retailers on board. What else is on the cards for the next 12 months?
Yeah, so just really focusing on pushing our sort of B2B wholesale channels a little bit more. Like Jay said earlier on, we didn't really focus on it, and now it's a big push for us. We really want to push sort of that 1,000 retailer store mark. We have some new innovations sort of down the product line coming up, a couple of new flavors launching soon as well, and then really looking to, I guess, solidify what international markets we want to push into, and then figuring out the best way to do that without sort of dropping that consumer experience. Obviously here we can control a bit more. We do our own packaging, spend a lot on packaging to really nail that consumer experience from when they order to when it rocks up to all of that. Obviously, when you push into international markets, you might have to sacrifice some of that. Maybe not. We're sort of going through all that now to make sure that when we do something, we do it right with sort of a strategy and purpose rather than just sort of throwing a Hail Mary and going, that didn't work. So just sort of mapping that all out now. And we've got some pretty big sort of financial targets as well. We want to sort of hit this financial year and over the next couple of years too. But hopefully all that combined will get us there.
That's awesome. Very exciting. Now, if people want to check out more, if they want to go to the website or get in touch with you guys, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, just probably the website, sodii.com.au. You can you can contact us on there, obviously through socials as well. We have an internal marketing team, you get through to them and they can point you in the right direction or get to us on there as well. Just the normal channel, website, socials. You get to us there.
Just don't go to the website and not buy something, because you don't want to take that conversion rate down from 9%. If you land on that website, you are buying.
Don't tank the stats.
Yeah. At least get us on back.
Yeah.
Jason, Cale, thank you so much for joining us on Add to Cart.
Thanks.
Thank you, mate. It's been nice. Cheers.
That was a bit of a masterclass on salt and electrolytes. Took me back to my sports science days. But there was a heap of e-commerce tips sprinkled in there. I hope you caught them from two very experienced brand specialists. Here are my top 3 takeaways from our conversation, especially useful if you're looking to launch a new product soon. Number 1, reframe the narrative to create demand. Jason and Cale didn't just launch a product, they flipped the script on salt and hydration. By focusing on education and science-backed benefits, they reshaped how people think about electrolytes, not just their product. They called out the sugar and artificial ingredients in existing products and offered a cleaner, salt-focused alternative sourced from, how good did that sound, WA's Lake Deborah. This fresh perspective didn't just appeal to athletes, it struck a chord with wellness enthusiasts and everyday Aussies. It's proof that creating demand can often start with changing the conversation. Not an easy thing to do, but sometimes that's where you need to start. Number 2, brand first, performance marketing. Those two words don't often go together. But in a race to drive clicks and sales, it is tempting to lean into aggressive performance marketing tactics focused on the bottom of the funnel. But Jason and Cale both believe that prioritizing your brand's identity and values over quick wins can lead to greater long-term success. By crafting ads and campaigns that authentically reflect their ethos of wellness and clean hydration, rather than pushing a sale, they're able to take their customers on a journey from ad click to purchase when the time is right. I love their philosophy of being there to help the customer at whatever stage they're at and not just going in for the hard sell every time. And number 3, building a base through niche communities. When Sodii launched during COVID, they avoided rushing into the mass market, even though the growth opportunities were huge. Instead, they targeted niche communities like keto Facebook groups and boutique gyms to introduce their product and get lots and lots of feedback. By collaborating with group admins and trusted influencers, they establish credibility and loyalty within these tight-knit networks. This grassroots approach laid a solid foundation before expanding, and today, Sodii is stocked in over 650 retailers. They've got a brilliant brand base behind them now. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend or colleague, perhaps someone who needs to know about the benefits of salt. And if you can, leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and support our amazing sponsors, Shopify and Klaviyo, who make this podcast possible. Before you go, we'd love to invite you to join our free e-commerce learning platform, Add to Cart Campus. Meet other professionals and learn from e-commerce experts to take your business and your e-commerce career to the next level. Register to join Campus at addtocart.com.au/campus. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you share it with a friend or a colleague, or even better, leave us a review on Spotify or Apple. It really makes a difference.